There's a kind of man who doesn't argue, he doesn't beg, he doesn't threaten, he simply watches, listens, and waits. And when the time is right, he conquers without ever raising his voice. This is the way of the Stoic warrior. In a world obsessed with noise, reaction, and emotional warfare, the truly powerful man wins by doing the opposite. He leads with silence. He dominates with presence. And he defeats his enemies without saying a single word. In this video, How Stoic Warriors Crush Their Enemies Without Saying a Word, we will explore 7 unshakable principles that Stoic warriors lived by, drawn from ancient philosophy, the Bible, and the legacy of great men who mastered their minds and silenced their enemies without chaos. If you're ready to rise above drama, control your reactions, and master your battles with cold precision, this is for you. Before we continue, take a moment to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. I choose power over noise. Let's get into it. 1. The war begins. Within every battle is first fought. In silence, in solitude, in the shadows of your own thoughts. Before a Stoic warrior ever engages with an enemy, he masters the battlefield of his own mind. Why? Because the man who cannot conquer himself will be conquered by everything outside of him. There was once a ruler, a man who held the Roman Empire in his hands, but never let it corrupt his soul. This man wasn't loud, he didn't boast of victories, he sat with his thoughts, fought battles in silence, and ruled his emotions like a king over a kingdom. His name was Marcus Aurelius, and his legacy was not built by rage, but by restraint. He once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't a quote, it was a code, a survival weapon, a war cry for men who refuse to be slaves to their feelings. The true enemy is not the man who insults you. It's your desire to respond. It's not the betrayal. It's your urge to retaliate emotionally. It's not the obstacle. It's your belief that you shouldn't have to face it. A man like Aurelius didn't just wear the crown, he wore the burden of every Roman heart. And yet, with the weight of an empire pressing on his chest, he never cracked. Why? Because he'd already fought his inner war and won. Stoic warriors win before they ever lift a sword because they train their emotions into submission. They treat their thoughts the way a general trains soldiers, disciplined, alert, and never driven by fear. And this isn't just Stoic theory, it's the way of God's greatest warriors. Look at David before he faced Goliath. He didn't puff his chest, he didn't boast, he didn't fight with rage. He stood calm, controlled, confident in who he was. He had already won the battle inside, long before he stepped onto the battlefield. That's what made him dangerous. The Stoic man walks into conflict with a still mind and a storm of discipline inside him. And that silence? That silence is terrifying to the enemy, because it means you're in control. They can't manipulate you. They can't read you. They can't predict your move. In a world addicted to reaction, your stillness becomes your weapon. You want to crush your enemy? Start by removing his greatest advantage, your emotional response. Drop a comment below. My silence is my sharpest sword. 2. The power of no reaction. A lion does not flinch when a dog barks. A king does not answer every insult hurled from the crowd. And a Stoic warrior? He watches. He listens. But he does not react. Silence is not weakness. It's control. And control is what terrifies your enemy the most. In this world, people feed off your reaction. They provoke you just to see what you'll do. They throw insults like bait, hoping you'll bite, so they can drag you into their chaos. But the Stoic man knows the moment you react emotionally, you've already lost. Your enemy doesn't need to defeat you in battle. He just needs you to lose your cool. He just needs you to break character, to let your anger speak instead of your wisdom. But when you don't react, you don't just take away their power, you expose how weak they really are. Let them shout. Let them lie, let them throw dirt on your name. A real warrior sits in silence because he knows something deeper. Truth doesn't need to argue. Dignity doesn't shout, and vengeance, when it's righteous, is quiet and precise. Take the example of Jesus before Pilate. When questioned, accused, mocked, and insulted, he didn't fight back. He didn't scream for justice. He stood in divine composure. He chose silence over reaction. And that silence, it shook kingdoms. It silenced accusers. It revealed who truly held the power. That's the Stoic way. Let the enemy dig his own grave by overextending, overspeaking, and overreacting. Meanwhile, you stay grounded, calm, and locked in, because you know something the enemy doesn't. He who angers you controls you. Ancient Stoic proverb. So if you want to defeat your enemy without saying a word, train yourself not to respond. Don't explain yourself to fools. Don't lower yourself to liars. Don't waste breath on those who want to drain you. You're not here to entertain egos. You're here to win in silence. The moment you stop reacting, you start dominating. When you master non-reaction, you rob your enemy of the reaction they crave. You take away their momentum. You make them question themselves. You rise while they burn themselves out in noise. And when the time is right, your silence will speak louder than their entire strategy. That's how Stoic warriors conquer. Not with noise, not with rage, but with the unnerving power of a man who's completely in control of himself. Drop a comment below. I don't react. I rise. 3. Discipline is the death of your enemy. You want to know what really destroys your enemies? Not anger, not revenge, not loud declarations of war. It's discipline. Because while your enemy is hoping you'll take the bait, you're waking up early, you're keeping your word, you're sharpening your mind, you're building a life so powerful, so focused, that they become irrelevant. Discipline is deadly. It's not loud, but it's lethal. It's not emotional, but it's relentless. It's not flashy, but it cannot be stopped. A Stoic warrior doesn't need to raise his voice to defeat his enemy. He defeats him by staying consistent when others fall apart, by choosing structure over chaos, by living above the noise. Look at the ancient warrior Epictetus, born a slave, beaten, chained, mocked. He had every reason to hate, to seek revenge, to let bitterness consume him, but instead he mastered himself. He turned suffering into strength, and through pure mental discipline, he rose to become one of the most respected philosophers in Rome. His words still echo, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That is the secret. The man who controls himself has already conquered everything. He's dangerous because he's not driven by impulse. He's not distracted by drama. He doesn't need to respond to threats. He becomes the threat by showing up disciplined every day. Let them mock you. Let them call you cold, distant, unfeeling. You don't need to react. Just keep showing up. Keep grinding. Keep building. Because every time you rise without fanfare, your enemies fall without understanding why. That's the cold beauty of discipline. It turns your enemy's obsession with you into their own destruction. While they watch your every move, you're moving in silence. While they talk, you're executing. While they wait for you to break, you're getting stronger in the dark. And by the time they realize what you've become, it's already too late. Even the Bible echoes this truth. Think about Nehemiah. He was rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, and his enemies kept trying to distract him, intimidate him, tear him down. But he didn't come down from the wall. He didn't stop the work to argue. He simply said, "I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down." That's discipline. That's silence in motion. That's how a Stoic crushes his enemies, not by shouting back, but by never stepping off the mission. So ask yourself, are you going to let petty people knock you off your path? Or are you going to keep building stone by stone until your very existence becomes the response? Your legacy will not be built on reaction. It will be built on daily discipline. And when your enemies finally look up, they won't find the same man they tried to break. They'll find a warrior, unshaken, elevated, untouchable. That's how you win. That's how you dominate. That's how a Stoic warrior destroys without saying a word. Drop a comment below. Discipline is my revenge. Rise so high they can't reach you. There is a level of power that silences every critic, every hater, every enemy, and that power is elevation. You don't need to argue with them. You don't need to prove yourself. You don't even need to respond. You just rise quietly, ruthlessly, above everything. Because here's the truth. The higher you climb, the smaller their voices become. The Stoic warrior doesn't stay in the mud with his enemies. He doesn't get tangled in gossip, cheap drama, or the petty chaos of the crowd. He doesn't even flinch when his name is slandered or dragged through the dirt, because he knows no one throws stones at what they're not threatened by. So let them talk, let them hate, let them scream your name into the void, because while they're busy talking about you, you're busy becoming untouchable. That's the greatest revenge, living on a level so high they can't even stand in the same room. And you don't get there by chance. You get there by choosing every day to level up in silence. You build in the dark, you heal in silence. You grow when nobody sees it. And then one day, without warning, you become the storm that no one can stop. The Stoic understands this. Seneca, another Roman master of wisdom, once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In other words, don't sink to their level, rise above it. They insult, you stay calm. They lie, you stay honest. They try to trap you in emotion, you respond with stillness, progress, purpose. And by the time they realize what you've become, you're already miles ahead, too far to hear their words, too focused to even care. Look at Joseph in the Bible. His own brothers betrayed him, threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery, and for years he was forgotten, broken, tested. But he never cursed them. He never got revenge, he elevated. He became second in command to Pharaoh, the most powerful man in Egypt. And when those same brothers came crawling back in famine, they didn't even recognize him, because pain had shaped him into a man too powerful to be touched by bitterness. That's the Stoic path. You don't chase revenge. You become someone they can never reach again. You silence your enemies not with words, but with transformation. Let your success shame their attacks. Let your peace expose their chaos. Let your power humble their pride. Because at the end of the day, the man who moves in silence, stays in control, and chooses to rise wins. Always. So don't explain, don't react, just elevate. And remember, you don't need to destroy your enemies with anger. Just keep rising until they can't touch you. That's the way of the Stoic warrior. That's how you crush your enemies without saying a word. If you found this video powerful, make sure you like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. And drop a comment below. I rise in silence. I dominate in peace. 5. Peace is the battlefield they can't enter. There's something your enemy will never understand. He studies your moves, he attacks your name. He tries to break you with words, with pressure, with noise. But the one thing he can't touch, the one place he can never win, is your inner peace. And that's what truly crushes him. You defeat your enemies not by fighting them, but by being unaffected by them. That's the silent war. That's the higher ground. That's the mark of a Stoic warrior, a man who has mastered himself so completely that no external chaos can shake him. Because when you've built a fortress inside your soul, nothing outside of you has the power to invade. Think about that. No matter how much they gossip, no matter how hard they try to provoke you, no matter how loud their hate gets, you are unmoved. Not because you're weak, but because you've built strength where it matters most, within. The enemy expects you to break. They expect you to lash out, to collapse, to come unglued. But when you remain still, composed, and centered, it drives them mad. Because your peace is proof that they hold no power over you. This is why the Stoics trained their minds like warriors trained their swords. Because the real enemy is never the person It's the reaction. It's the weakness within. Marcus Aurelius, writing as a general and emperor, said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." This is the final victory. Peace that does not shake when the world does. That's how you defeat your enemies without raising your voice. That's how you humiliate them, by staying calm when they are frantic, by staying collected when they are consumed by chaos. And here's the secret. When you stop giving your energy to the enemy, you starve them. They want your reaction, they feed off your emotion, but your silence, your discipline, your inner calm, it starves their ego and crushes their illusion of control. Look at Christ on the cross, surrounded by enemies, mocked by men who thought they had won. He said just a few words, but none of them were to curse his enemies. Instead, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That is divine peace. That is unshakable inner power. That is the kind of strength that silences the world. So build your peace. Guard it like a fortress. Train your mind like a warrior, and never let chaos pull you back into battles you've already outgrown. Because the ultimate Stoic warrior is not loud, he is not reactive, he is unbothered. And that, my friend, is the kind of man no enemy can defeat. Drop a comment below. Key, my silence is louder than their war. If you felt the power in this message, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with a brother who needs it. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss wisdom that sharpens your mind and strengthens your spirit. And let the world know in the comments, I move in silence, I lead with discipline, I rise above the noise. Because that's the truth. You don't need to shout to win. You don't need to fight to conquer. You just need to become so focused, so disciplined, and so untouchable that silence becomes your sword and peace becomes your victory. The Stoic warrior doesn't need applause. He just keeps winning in silence.